Hello and welcome to Go Beyond Sports with me, Sonali Gupta. It is always a pleasure bringing to you stories about sports and movement. Today with us, we have a very special guest who completely endorses the entire concept of movement through physical literacy. With us today is Nigel Green, who is a physical education and physical literacy consultant. He has been involved in training teachers and providing professional development for over 30 years in the UK and most recently in India, Brazil, Taiwan, and other countries worldwide. As a vice chair of the Northern Western Counties Physical Education Association and chair of the International Physical Literacy Association, Nigel demonstrates a commitment and passion to promote and support the development of physical education and physical literacy worldwide. He has written articles, delivered CPD, organized and presented at workshops, webinars, and conferences on physical literacy, personal development through PE, and assessments in PE. Nigel is editor of the Research Matters section of the AFPE journal, Physical Education Matters, and is currently working with schools, organizations, and governments, both in the UK and across the world. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nigel, and it's a pleasure having you.
Namaste, and it's a pleasure to be invited. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to begin with the question that I always start with. What sport do you play, and why do you play a sport?
Okay, so I'm just going to clarify something at the start, and that's sport, and the difference between sport and physical activity. So the word sport is often used by politicians and many other people to mean a whole range of things. So I think we need to clarify that. So sport is on a continuum, effectively. And at one end, we've got the professional level, the high achievers, the Olympic medals and so on, going right the way down to the initial early grassroots that we might find in schools or local communities. So from that point of view, I do quite a few things. I play golf a couple of times a week, and I'm a member at a club. I'm not particularly brilliant, but I enjoy the social aspect and the competition as well. I play tennis and table tennis, and this is with groups of older adults. And again, although it would look like tennis to a certain degree, or table tennis, and some of the stuff that we do is very, very good. Our movements are not as athletic as we would like because of the age of the participants. Most of them are between sort of 60 and 80. But again, everybody who takes part enjoys it and gets a lot from it. I also run, I cycle, I swim, I climb mountains, I do triathlons, and I've been fortunate to have had a wide range of experiences and a wide range of activities. So if someone said, do you want to go skiing? I'll go. If someone said, do you want to go windsurfing? I'll go. So I try to do something every day. If not one thing, sometimes two things. So hopefully that answers your question.
Absolutely. And not only answers, it's extremely inspiring to know the whole range of activities, the sports and the movement that you're into. And since we are going to talk a lot about physical literacy, I want to hear it from you. So everything that you do, how would you define physical literacy?
Okay, so physical literacy is our disposition to engage in physical activity. It's how we value, first of all, and then actively engage in physical activity throughout our lives.
Right.
So it's a lifelong concept. It starts from birth, when we interact with the environment around us as a young child, and then as we grow and be provided with a different range of environments, so we continue to develop our physical literacy. Our physical literacy is influenced by our physical competence, our knowledge and understanding, our confidence and our motivation. So therefore, what's really important is that throughout our lives, we have opportunities that are appropriate to us, that allow us to develop our physical competence, allow us to develop our knowledge and understanding and our confidence, and that will help motivate us to engage in physical activity for life. The other thing about physical literacy is the unique nature of it to us. Physical literacy is our physical literacy. It's unique to every individual. We are all different. We all have different capabilities and abilities. We're all born into different environments, different families. So we will have different influences there. We go to different schools. We enjoy some things and we don't enjoy other things. So we will have likes that we want to pursue a little bit further. And physical literacy embraces that. And it said, look, we're all different. And what we want is everyone, no matter what ability, no matter what age, to be physically active for life. Yeah, go on, carry on.
Do you think that all of what you've described as physical literacy is really truly imbibed or even available for us to know and understand from our current systems and mindsets in perhaps even schools and colleges, meeting this criteria of physical well-being for not only our students, but perhaps as a learning to be able to carry on further?
Yes, I think it can be, and this comes down to education.
Right.
And if we can explain the concept to people, then we've got more chance of them understanding it and embracing it. So, for example, as a parent, you probably like to think you provide a range of opportunities for your children, but you're probably not aware that how you provide them and what the things you say to them and what you do at times can really impact on how they feel. So as a simple example, if a child wants to climb a tree and the parent says, no, you can't climb that tree, you might injure yourself. Straight away, that's restricting that child's opportunity to challenge themselves in a different environment. Now, if another parent says, okay, have a go at climbing the tree, I'll stand behind you to start off with, and then let's see how you go, and I'll help you climb up, but we need to make sure you can climb down as well. And then if you can get up to that branch, perhaps the next week you can try and climb a little bit higher and challenge yourself. And you might want to jump down or swing on the branch or do something different. Having that more open approach, more supportive, excuse me, a more encouraging approach is important. And the same is the case when children get to school. Often in schools, the teacher will focus perhaps on teaching a skill in a lesson. And if the children can't get it, that's tough. And they'll keep working on that skill. But if the teacher reflects on where the children are at within that class and provides support to the less able, provides other challenges to the more able, then it's quite possible that everyone in that class can succeed. As they succeed in their challenges, they'll gain confidence, they'll gain competence, knowledge and understanding, and then motivation. So, yeah, I do think that if we can educate people about the power of physical literacy, then we've got a chance of moving things forwards.
So then in that case, how easy, or rather how difficult would it be to make this change of a cultural mindset of a country, especially that of India, that is primarily education based, to focus its attention and resources towards physical literacy, or perhaps have a teacher or a parent tell them it's all right for you to go and play and not spend your time in educating yourself for a viable future? or a career-oriented future or a job-oriented future?
Okay, so there's a few things here. There's the importance of a physical education, which is part of a balanced education. And if you look at any government's manifestos, they will all say, we value a physical education.
Right.
However, the status of physical education in most countries around the world is very low. And unfortunately, that's because organizations outside of school value the academic qualifications above everything else. And this influences the parents to also value the academic above the physical. But what they don't realize is that actually we learn through engaging physically in environments. Right from our early years, as we crawl, as we walk, as we run, hop, skip, jump, we are engaging in our environments and we're learning. And the more we do that, the more the neural pathways will be strengthened and developed. And we need to keep doing that. There's lots of evidence about, people who are more physically active are more ready to learn as well. So we need to make sure that parents, teachers, governors, politicians are made aware, or it's reinforced yet again, that physical education is important. The research backs it up, but we've got to have that buy-in from the schools, from the politicians, from the parents.
Right.
So, not an easy task.
Does that mean that physical literacy is a replacement to physical education that we have currently? Or is that a support to what we already have?
Okay, so physical education is a subject that is taken in schools. Physical literacy is a life course concept. It's our desire to engage in physical activity throughout life. So it'll vary whatever stage we're at, whatever influence we've got throughout life. So I would suggest that physical literacy is the underpinning or overarching focus of physical education. So if school teachers or teachers of physical education in schools can understand the concept, it will guide them in their practice. Because as I mentioned earlier, a lot of practice in schools is focused on teaching skills or sports, right, and looking at preparing teams to win medals. And that only includes a very, very small percentage of the pupils in that population. Our focus should be on a holistic education for our children that includes all of the children. And if we can engage all the children in enjoying physical activity, there's more likelihood that they're going to carry on wanting to engage and enjoy throughout their lives.
Right. So what are the changes that we can bring about in the current awareness that we have towards being physically fit and towards being physically active for all the number of our years, rather than having sort of blocks where you're active in childhood and then perhaps you have a larger gap, and one fine day you realize that I want to be active again, and then you take it up. So what does it take, and what kind of awareness and changes do we require for people like you've mentioned about physical literacy, for it to become a constant part of their lives, or a choice that they keep making?
Okay, so again, there's a number of things that we can pick up here. For you to want to be physically active, you have got to have had that previous stimulus that has engaged you, that's allowed you to enjoy and thrive through your engagement in physical activity, and that gets you to want to have more. And you can probably think back to your PE classes, and you might have been someone who did quite well and enjoyed them. and that's fine for you. And that's probably encouraged you to be physically active throughout your life. But there's a lot of other children within that class, and for whatever reason, whatever the teacher was doing, they might not have enjoyed it, and therefore they've been switched off the activity, and therefore they don't want to engage in physical activity. They don't get that pleasure from it. So that's the first thing to realize. The second thing, I think, is teacher training. From my experience of talking to teachers in India, and also the openness of some of the university lecturers I've spoken to in India, they have accepted that the practices in teacher education haven't really moved on that far. And there's probably two reasons for this. One, the desire for physical education to be seen as an academic subject. And this happened in the UK, and it's happened in other countries. Let's bring in biomechanics, let's bring in physiology, psychology, and let's make it more academic, rather than appreciating the practical aspect and the impact that can have on us as individuals. So this comes back then to pedagogical approaches. And again, for a lot of my experience in India, and again, I will say other countries, I see a very teacher-focused, this is what you do, this is how you do it. This is where you warm up, this is where you line up, this is where you stand in lines and wait your turn. This is the skill, and you've got to do it time and time and time again, and we'll have a little bit of a game at the end. Now, too often that pedagogical approach of command and practice is what I see. So it's not allowing the children to develop and grow as individuals. It's not giving them that confidence. It's not challenging them to be creative and innovative. And therefore there's a whole range of strategies that teachers can use, and teaching models that can be applied to different situations that will allow the children far more opportunity to flourish. So I think the teacher training needs to look at what it does. Right. But also we've got many teachers who taught in the way they were taught, and they are taught in the way their predecessors were taught, and they've been doing it for the last 20 or 30 years, and they're not very keen on changing. Right. So we've got to work with them to change it as well. Right. So if you had to effectively put this down into a point structure and a step-by-step process, would the starting point be the change of curriculum by itself, and then the teachers, and perhaps then bring it down? How would you structure this? And what are the kind of changes that are required in terms of then perhaps the curriculum or even the policies? Yeah, I think there's two ways of doing this. One is working with schools and starting from the bottom and influencing schools to influence other schools. The other is looking at the policymakers and getting them to filter it down. Now, I was going to mention this later, but a fantastic thing that India has done at the moment is with the Supreme Court. The potential of making physical literacy a fundamental human right, rather than sport, which again, it says to me that India is understanding the breadth of physical literacy rather than perhaps the narrowness of sport, is a real positive. Also, within that material, they're suggesting that children have 90 minutes of play and games every day, and that schools are open in the evenings and at weekends. Now that in itself would be world leading. Absolutely. In the UK, we usually have about 2 hours a week PE, and that doesn't always happen. We've talked about and are trying to open the schools in evenings at weekend. It's not happening. I can see India doing it because it has, once it decides on something, it has that focus. The problem is the infrastructure and the practitioners. So it's all very well saying we've got 90 minutes a day, but who is going to lead that? Who is going to provide the quality experiences? What facilities are available at the schools? What equipment is available at the schools to enable things to happen? So it's fine making a policy, but you've got to be able to enact that with the right people and the right practices.
Right.
Just to give you an example, in the UK, we're looking at our primary education, because even though we've put a lot of time, a lot of money into PE in primary schools, it's still not very good overall. It's great in some schools, don't get me wrong, it's absolutely fabulous. But in a lot of schools, it's not as good as it should be. So we're looking at ways of supporting teachers as new, I think it's £30 million project that's going to be going soon, to support teachers in developing their practice to improve what they're doing so they can improve the experiences.
Right. So coming back perhaps to India and policies and the changes, what was your experience like with KHELO India movement, and what do you think has changed in India since then, and to what you see in it currently?
Okay, so I've had two probably three main experiences in India. The first experience with Gupta when he invited us to Hyderabad in 2016. And to see his passion on understanding, to want to promote physical literacy. Once he understood it in detail, he could link it to the Indian culture, and he realized the need for progress. So the work he's done has been absolutely tremendous. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I've worked with three schools in the New Delhi area, and they had the foresight to want to reflect on what was happening in PE and to see how they could move it forwards. And although progress for everyone in those schools hasn't gone as quickly as perhaps I'd have liked, and that's as much down to time with me being able to support them. Certainly in one of the schools, they've really embraced it. And the head of PE at that school has been across the UK presenting at conferences. He's just at a workshop in India. And because he understood the concept and he worked hard with his team, that's transformed what they've done. And the impact on the children has been tremendous. I did a video with the children telling me how their PE had changed. And that was phenomenal. I'd love to be able to share that with you at some stage, because yes, the way the children spoke about their experiences was fantastic. Coming back to KHELO India, my experience of KHELO India is limited. Okay, so my understanding is their main focus is on the youth games. So to me, this is a focus on excellence. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have excellence, but if all the money is being pumped into producing Olympic medals, then that's going to impact on 0.1% of the population. Okay, there's going to be a lot of people involved in the games, but again, if that's 5% of the children, I think that's probably very generous. So what about the other 95%? What's happening to them? Where's the input to them? And I think this is what I want to change in the UK as well as elsewhere, is when we analyse how schools are performing and what they're doing well, we often look at exam results. I would rather for PE that we don't look at exam results. We look at how many children are engaging in physical activity on a regular basis. How many people are embracing that, no matter what level, how many. I'm not bothered about how many medals and how many competitions the schools won, although that is nice and that is a benefit and it will happen. I want to know how many children are engaging. So one more point, and you might correct me here, is the introduction of fitness testing. Now, I think that came from KHELO India, but I also think it came from the government. And I am very much against that. Essentially, a fitness test is fine if it is used appropriately for the right person at the right time in the right situation. It's important in education for children to understand about how they can improve the fitness, why they need to improve the fitness and stay healthy, and the strategies they can use to test and modify what they're doing to monitor their progress. However, when I was out in India, the suggestion was every school should test all the children on these specific fitness tests: the bleep test, the sit and reach test, the grip test, etc., which were all designed for adults. Now, if you look at the literature, all the literature suggests fitness testing of children is not appropriate. It will not motivate them. It will not improve them. It will, if anything, it will put them off. And when I talk to other people, particularly politicians, I say, okay, if you want to test all the children, why don't you test all the adults? Would you like to do a bleep test yourself once a year, and a sit-up test, and a hang test, and all the other tests? Would you like to go through that? Would you like to then be compared against everybody in your age group as well?
Right.
And I think they'd probably say no.
Yes.
And that's exactly what I would say. I'm quite happy doing my own fitness tests if I feel I need to do them. Most of the time I don't, because I know I'm enjoying physical activity and enjoying engaging in things that I want to do. Just doing a fitness test once a year, absolutely pointless.
Wow.
So you might come back at me at that, but that's absolutely fine.
No, I absolutely agree, and I endorse your idea that we do not really require to begin the rat race that we have at the early onset for children, because this really kind of affects their mental growth. Yeah. And that's exactly what we are going to be teaching them, that you kind of become a comparative society for everything that we do, and it does not require to come down to that, because we are taking away individualism from absolutely every single person who's out there. So thank you so much. This has actually been extremely insightful, and for us to understand and value who we are as individual human beings, each one of us with our own journeys, each one of us with our own stories and reasons for even choosing to remain physically active. And which is why when you bring in this whole concept of physical literacy, it becomes so much more important to learn it and understand it only for your own self, perhaps. And then it is where we come down to these slogans of each one teach one. And, when you clean your doorstep, the world ultimately becomes clean. So this is how we then kind of embrace and we all grow. So thank you so much, Nigel, for taking off your time this morning and speaking to us. And thank you for being a part of Go Beyond Sport platform today.
That's my pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching. Please do like, comment, and subscribe, and help us grow and support and bring stories which help us empower and inspire. Thank you so much.